You know, everything in this league, it literally changes in a matter of seconds. While all those primetime cameras, they focus exclusively on the million-dollar quarterbacks, right? Or the superstar wide receivers dancing in the end zone under the bright stadium lights. There is a brutal, entirely hidden war being fought in the National Football League. A merciless, underground reality where careers are born, broken, and completely buried before the stadium gates even open. I want you to listen closely for a second. Beneath the roaring of the crowd, there is the distinct, sickening crack of carbon fiber and bone. The heavy breathing of 300-pound men colliding with the literal force of high-speed vehicles. We're talking about the trenches. And the margin for error in this claustrophobic nightmare, it isn't just small. It is absolutely zero. Today in this explainer, we are looking at the violent micro-battles that dictate the macro success of an entire franchise. We are pulling back the curtain to reveal the terrifying reality of the men who live on the absolute fringe of the roster.
Will be something to be scared of. Those are the exact words of legendary quarterback Phil Simms, delivering a genuinely chilling prophecy regarding the 2026 Los Angeles Chargers offense. But here's the thing. A terrifying, unstoppable machine, it cannot operate without its internal gears. It just can't. It cannot function without the unglamorous, grinding, completely unseen cogs that protect its multi-million-dollar core. So this analysis, it is not about the stars whose jerseys you go out and buy. This is about the survival of the pieces that make that impending nightmare an actual reality. Because if the deepest, darkest foundation of this roster cracks under the pressure, the entire 2026 machine collapses into dust.
Welcome to NFL Nexus. This is exactly where we dissect the beautiful, brutal reality of the sport down to its most microscopic details. If you want the real truth behind the trenches, you need to subscribe to the NFL Nexus channel right now. Go ahead and like this explainer. Comment on what you thought down below. We want to hear from you. And if you are truly obsessed with the granular details that actually win championships, support the channel by becoming a channel member today. Your loyalty is what fuels this deep dive analysis. All right, let's step into the dark.
Part 1. The Undrafted Survivor. Okay, let's dive into this. We are focusing our lens on a singular entity today. A player who is not defined by some massive signing bonus or non-stop media hype, but by pure, unfiltered desperation. I need you to not look at Josh Kautenberger as just a standard backup offensive lineman. Look at him as a warrior who is fighting for his professional life. Because every single day he walks into that facility, he is one mistake, literally one bad rep, one slipped block away from his dream being permanently extinguished. The journey to this absolute precipice of the NFL, it was forged in iron. Born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he played his high school ball at Seneca Valley. And look, he wasn't a five-star prodigy who was just handed the keys to the kingdom. He was a three-star recruit, a prospect stepping into the absolute meat grinder of Division I college football. And when we say meat grinder, we literally mean it. Imagine waking up at 4:30 a.m. every single day, your body already battered from the previous day's collisions, and you're forcing down 6,000 calories just to maintain the sheer physical mass required to survive. It is an agonizing, uphill battle where boys are violently transformed into men or they are just washed out entirely.
And the path was painstakingly slow. Year by agonizing year, he commits to the Purdue Boilermakers. In 2020, he redshirts, is forced to sit on the scout team, watch and physically acclimate to a level of violence he had literally never experienced before, absorbing daily beatdowns from future NFL draft picks. 2021 rolls around. He grinds his way onto the field for 12 games and earns academic All-Big Ten honors. But it isn't until 2022, after years of silent, brutal work in the shadows, that he finally earns the starting center job for the final 3 games of the season. Think about that for a second. Years of sweat, years of lifting heavy iron until his hands literally bled, all just for 3 desperate starts.
Realizing his window was rapidly closing, Kautenberger makes a massive, highly calculated risk for his final year of eligibility. He transfers to Maryland. This was it. This was his final audition, his absolute desperate plea to the unforgiving scouts of the National Football League. And you know what? He delivers. He anchors the line, starting 12 grueling games. But anchoring the number 3 passing offense in the highly competitive Big Ten, it isn't just about brawn. It is a terrifying mental game. Kautenberger was responsible for diagnosing the defense in actual milliseconds before the snap, identifying the Mike linebacker, calling out exotic, disguised blitz packages, shifting the offensive line protections while 300-pound defensive tackles were breathing right down his neck. He became the physical and mental epicenter of the Terrapins. He went to war. He protected the pocket.
Part 2. Purgatory in the trenches.
But here is the cold, hard truth. The NFL absolutely does not care about your college narrative. As we enter the brutal reality of the 2025 NFL Draft, the silence surrounding him was deafening. The draft community lacked any hype around his name whatsoever. 7 grueling rounds. 257 names called by the commissioner. Josh Keltenberger's name was never spoken. He went entirely undrafted, plunged immediately into the darkest purgatory of professional sports. 5. Let that number just hang in the silence for a moment. 5. That is the exact agonizing number of times Josh Keltenberger was signed and then cut from the Los Angeles Chargers practice squad in a single year. I want you to imagine the psychological torture of how a cut actually happens in this league. The phone rings at 6 a.m. A low-level assistant tells you to bring your playbook to the front office. You walk into this cold, sterile room and are told your services are simply no longer needed. You pack your cleats into a literal trash bag and walk out to your car while the million-dollar starters are just arriving for breakfast, only to get a call weeks later to come back and do it again. 5 separate times. The emotional whiplash of that is enough to break most men. But Keltenberger, he survived it.
Part 3. Grinding the analytics. But look, survival in the NFL is not just about raw willpower. It's not a movie. It is dictated by cold, unfilling data. So we're about to zoom in microscopically on the exact analytics that kept him breathing in this league. Every single movement, every step, every block is graded by a merciless eye. There is nowhere to hide on the film. During his 2024 season, he was subjected to 794 snaps. That is a monumental, back-breaking burden placed upon the shoulders of an undrafted player. Think about what a snap actually is. We said it earlier. It is a high-speed car crash between 2 massive human beings. 794 collisions. The sheer volume of physical trauma is completely staggering. We're talking about microfractures in the hands, the slow, painful degradation of the knee cartilage, the lumbar spine compressing violently on every single one of those 794 snaps.
And the distribution of that physical trauma, it requires immense mental processing on top of it. 30 snaps at left guard. 739 snaps anchoring the entire offensive line at center. 25 snaps shifting all the way over to right guard. He was essentially tossed around the interior of the line like a rag doll, forced to master 3 completely different positions, 3 entirely different sets of footwork, 3 different geometric angles of attack, all while fighting day in and day out just to stay on a practice squad.
Now, I want you to look closely at this stark, terrifying contrast in his grades on the screen here. Pro Football Focus graded his overall offensive output at a 61.0, but look at the run blocking, a 57.2. Let's be real, that is a failing grade in the unforgiving trenches. That means on running plays, opposing defensive tackles were dropping their weight, anchoring down, violently shedding his blocks, and actively compromising the rushing attack. But look at the pass blocking, a 75.7. That right there, that is survival. In a modern, pass-heavy league, that 75.7 is the singular, fraying life raft keeping his professional career afloat.
But the film also reveals his darkest, most vulnerable moments. Across those 794 snaps, he allowed 2 sacks, and they didn't happen over a long, drawn-out stretch of the season. No, they happened in a single, catastrophic game against Indiana. Let's isolate the microscopic details of that traumatic event. We are talking about mechanical failures measured in literal inches. On the first sack, perhaps his right foot takes a false step, just 2 inches too wide. That tiny, seemingly insignificant 2-inch error allows a defensive tackle to gain inside leverage, bull rushing him straight back into the quarterback's lap. On the second sack, a miscommunication on a defensive stunt leaves a looping defensive end completely untouched. The pocket collapses entirely, and in the NFL, scouts obsess over these moments. They isolate that Indiana game, they put it on a vicious loop, and they ask, will this happen on a Sunday, when the game and the entire season is on the line?
11 total pressures given up across the entire year. Now, I know it sounds like a small number to us sitting at home, but in the National Football League, an unblocked pressure isn't just some negative statistic on an Excel spreadsheet. It is a multi-million-dollar quarterback stepping up into the pocket and taking a devastating, high-speed hit to the ribs. It is a rushed throw under intense duress that turns into a season-ending interception. It is the agonizing difference between a perfectly clean pocket and a fractured collarbone that derails an entire franchise's decade. 11 mistakes. 11 moments where the armor visibly cracked. In this league, 11 mistakes can end a career instantly.
Part 4. The Scale of Athleticism.
So with all those run-blocking struggles heavily documented on the tape, with 5 brutal cuts from the practice squad, you have to ask yourself, why did the Los Angeles Chargers keep bringing him back into the building? Why hasn't Josh Kaltenberger been permanently erased from the roster like so many others? Because of hidden, explosive physical traits. The scale of his raw athleticism is something you simply cannot teach. 9.72. His relative athletic score, which is a composite metric that measures a player's size, speed, and explosion against their historical peers, is a 9.72 out of a perfect 10.00. Let that elite decimal just breathe for a moment. This is the underlying, terrifying potential that NFL general managers dream about at night. It proves that beneath the undrafted label, beneath that 57.2 run-blocking grade, there is an absolute freak of nature waiting to be molded by the right offensive line coach.
And to brilliantly illustrate just how exceedingly rare that physical profile truly is, when you expand the scale to historical proportions, Kaltenberger's 9.72 score ranks 20th out of 672 centers evaluated from 1987 all the way to 2025. He is a nearly 4-decade anomaly. Generations of players have come and gone, and he ranks 20th. Why is this so absolutely vital? Because modern NFL centers are no longer just stationary boulders in the middle of the field. They are required to pull on screen passes, run 20 yards downfield, and block hyper-athletic second-level linebackers in open space. That 9.72 metric, that is exactly why Phil Simms is warning the rest of the league about the 2026 Chargers, because they are meticulously stockpiling historically elite athletes even in the absolute deepest, darkest corners of their backup offensive line.
Part 5. The final roster thread.
But as we know, raw potential does not guarantee a paycheck. As we hurtle toward the 2026 season, a new, suffocating tension has entered the building. Kaltenberger's only lifeline on the final 53-man roster is under direct, immediate threat. The Chargers front office, they have brought in a mercenary to take his job. So the absolutely crucial point here is this impending head-to-head collision. The veteran survivor, Josh Kaltenberger, he is technically the only pure backup center on the roster behind starter Tyler Biadasz right now. But facing him in that locker room is the incoming threat, rookie Jake Slaughter. Slaughter was officially drafted to play guard, but make no mistake about it. For his entire college career, Slaughter was a center. The hardcore fans know it, the coaching staff absolutely knows it. This is going to be a desperate zero-sum war in training camp. Every single day, they will split the second-team reps. Every 9-on-7 drill, every 1-on-1 pass-blocking rep against the defensive tackles will be isolated on film in front of the entire coaching staff. It is a daily, microscopic grading of their professional lives. If Tyler Biadasz goes down during the season, only one of these men will be trusted to snap the ball to the franchise quarterback. Kaltenberger must prove he can destroy NFL-ready competition, or Slaughter will literally take his livelihood.
Part 6. The Nexus of 2026.
Let's move on and see how this all builds into the absolute cold financial reality of the National Football League. Because at the end of the day, past all the passion and the glory on Sundays, this is a business, a ruthless, highly calculated business where every single dollar against the salary cap is deeply scrutinized by the front office. According to SpotTrack, Josh Kaltenberger signed a 1-year, $885,000 contract with the Los Angeles Chargers. In 2026, Kaltenberger will earn a base salary of $885,000 while carrying a cap hit of $885,000. I want you to read those stakes like a grim, binding legal document. $885,000. To the average person watching from the stands, it's an absolute fortune, right? But in the reality of the NFL, it is the bare minimum survival wage. It is a fragile piece of paper. If he loses this brutal camp battle to Jake Slaughter, that contract evaporates into thin air. The cap hit vanishes. And Josh Kaltenberger is back on the street, waiting for his phone to ring at 6 a.m. all over again.
The trenches are completely, utterly merciless. The defenders lining up across from you do not care about your 9.72 athletic score if you miss your blocking assignment by an inch. The margin for error is absolutely zero. Every single snap, every micro movement of Kaltenberger's heavily taped hands and battered feet during this upcoming training camp will dictate the safety of this franchise. That terrifying 2026 machine that Phil Simms warned us about, it is being built right now. Not up in the pristine offices of the general manager, but piece by agonizing piece, down in the dirt.
Which leaves us staring directly into the vast unknown of the upcoming season. Will the ultimate survivor, a man cut 5 separate times, finally hold the line and secure his absolute destiny behind Tyler Biadasz? Or will Josh Kaltenberger become just another silent, forgotten casualty swallowed whole by the unforgiving NFL trenches? This is the brutal, hidden reality of the game we love. Thank you so much for diving deep with us in this explainer. Don't forget to subscribe to the NFL Nexus channel, like this explainer, and comment your predictions down below. Support the channel by becoming a channel member today. We'll see you in the next analysis.